They're throwing a push in the middle.
This company has repeatedly committed, I would say, crimes against the earth, and what we're trying to show is accountability for corporations. It's not just them, there are other corporations that are doing exactly the same thing in other ways or another, but we also want to promote clean food that's free of pesticides, which our grandparents just called food. They're poisoning our food. Monsanto, help it, Monsanto, help it. They're poisoning our food. Help it. They're poisoning our food. But then the whole thing is such a big deal. They're poisoning our food.
We're watching RT International. Now, protests against GMO giant Monsanto are rolling out across the globe. Thousands of demonstrators are turning out in over 400 cities worldwide. Let's show you some pictures we've got now from Berlin, where crowds have taken to the streets there. Demonstrators are chanting anti-GM slogans, GMO slogans, and holding banners decrying the activities of the corporation. And these are protests in Paris, where people are warning of the dangers of GMOs and how they endanger the environment, and doing that in style too. Well, organisers expect this year's numbers to beat previous records and span almost 50 countries. Our correspondents are bringing you the latest pictures and opinions from rallies in some of the world's major cities. March against Monsanto has now reached the US, and among the latest cities to join the protest is New York. Marina Portnaya has been following the demonstration there.
The worldwide march against Monsanto has drawn hundreds out onto the streets here in New York City, with people seizing the opportunity to voice their concerns and opposition to GMO foods. Now, while polls show that the majority of Americans want GMO foods to be labeled, the food industry is not required or mandated to comply with what consumers want. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, Monsanto spent more than $4 million last year lobbying lawmakers. Finances many believe went towards preventing GMO labeling on both a state and federal level. But activists say no amount of money will keep them from raising awareness about the dangers surrounding Monsanto's GMO seeds.
What's more important than what you take in every day in your body? Food, it's our key form of survival, and Monsanto is the reason why GMOs are in most of our food, and we're one of the only countries that hasn't banned them. So I think that it's a really big deal, and people need to speak out in order to make a change.
The world throughout is rising up against Monsanto and how they are monopolizing all the seeds, all the food, and if they own the food, they literally own the planet.
My biggest concern is probably the fact that they're not labeling them to begin with. Like, you'd think if they were actually good for you and they're able to feed more people, then they would want to label, they'd be proud of their product. But instead, they don't give us the choice.
This is Monsanto's best-selling herbicide, Roundup. A recent report by the World Health Organization listed Roundup as a possible carcinogen. Now, Roundup is a weed killer that's used here in New York and in the majority of states throughout the country. Reporting from New York, Marina Portnaya, RT.
Well, alongside the protest, there is also a strong presence on social media to back up the point. The hashtag March Against Monsanto has been trending around the world. It is actually the third annual March Against Monsanto, uniting people to show their support across continents. Apart from Europe and North America, there are also rallies in Africa, South America and Asia as well. France is one of the EU nations where the cultivation and sale of Monsanto crops is banned. However, the use of the company's pesticides is still allowed, and that's something the protesters that flooded the streets of several cities there wanted changed. Lucy Phelan reports now from Paris.
Parts of the French capital have been brought to a standstill by the Parisian wing of the global march against Monsanto, which is also taking place in 20 other cities across France. Now, France is one of Monsanto's biggest markets. Even though production of its corn has been banned here for several years, its controversial weed killers are still widely on sale, even though the World Health Organization recently found a connection between the Monsanto weed killer Roundup and cancer. Now, it was a French court that a few years ago found Monsanto guilty for chemical poisoning a French farmer who said that he suffered neurological problems, including headaches and memory loss, after he inhaled a Monsanto weed killer, and he blamed the company for not adequately labeling its products. So the message from people here today is that unless Monsanto is stopped, then people all over the world will be suffering the consequences for generations to come. Lizzie Phelan for RT.
So activists accuse the Agricultural Corporation of selling toxic chemicals. Small farmers accuse Monsanto of monopolising the market, while others complain its activity causes harm to water resources. The company is also criticised for its attitude to food safety regulations and environmental destruction. The safety of GM crops and Monsanto's role in forcing countries to grow them were on people's minds in Berlin too. Some told RT that if they give in to genetically modified food, soon there will be no other choice, as Peter Oliver reports.
Why is there such a demonstration here in Berlin? Germany doesn't use Monsanto seeds, after all. Well, German farmers do use Monsanto herbicides and pesticides, and it's traces of those pesticides and herbicides that have started turning up in places like the breast milk of feeding mothers, also in the water supply and in the urine of people who haven't eaten GMO products. So those turning up here are saying it's time to take action against having this GMO product in our foods.
The changes to the food supply are irreversible, and that's for the rest of human history. There's no going back. We're losing choice because it'll all become GMO.
I think the general population will not wake up until they realize that they're getting seriously ill from this, that they're getting sterile, that they have a shortened lifespan. And maybe this is what really gets people, is that they're getting fat and ugly.
So that's why people here in Berlin are adding their voices to those across Europe and across the world on Saturday. People want to have the choice not to be able to eat Monsanto products and other GMO products, a choice that they feel has been taken away from them right now. In Berlin for RT, I'm Peter Oliver.
The wind in the trees, I see the dance. In the stars, I see my destiny. Even as night falls, I know the sun will rise again. You must look out for me, and me must look out for you. One heart, one love, one talk.